In your car, listen to Newswatch 16 on WKRZ AM 1340.
Proud to serve northeastern and central Pennsylvania. This is WNEP 16, the news station. Now, Nolan Johannes, Karen Harch, pilot Jack Rulin in Skycam 16, Chief Meteorologist Tom Clark, and Joe Zone on sports. This is Newswatch 16.
If you're wondering what's in the future for your telephone, how about a phone that tells you who is calling before you pick up the receiver? Bell of Pennsylvania customers are already testing the feature in the Harrisburg area, and someday that service may be available in our area. Newswatch 16's Bob Costantini went to Harrisburg today to get a glimpse of the future phones.
The phone rings, and before I even get a chance to pick it up, on this caller ID display, the number of the person who's calling me appears. Now, if I know that number and I don't want to answer, don't want to talk to that person, I don't have to pick up the phone. Or if I want to keep the line clear, I also don't have to pick up the phone and wait for whatever particular call I want.
The calling party knew who he was calling and knew what they wanted to say to them. Now the called party has the rights to say whether they want to answer that phone or not.
It's especially good if you don't feel like being called in for work. Bob Foster of Bell Labs calls the desk I'm sitting at to demonstrate another feature.
Now, if I do pick up the telephone, hello, and it's an anonymous telephone call, an annoying phone call, or just someone I don't want to speak with, I hang up. Then, to cut that person off, this is called selective call rejection, I dial *60. That means the person who called just previously cannot call this phone again.
If the person tries to call back,
at this time, the party whose number you are calling is not accepting your call.
another code would immediately trace the last call and print that number at the telephone company.
Up until now, you had to call the business office and have them put a trace on your line. With the new feature, you can immediately trace that number and have it sent to our equipment.
Bell of Pennsylvania is now testing these features in the Harrisburg area. Bell telephone officials say these features and others could arrive in our area by 1987. Bob Costantini, Newswatch 16, Harrisburg.
Next on Newswatch 16 Update, rain, rain, go away.
We'll take a look at what this cold, wet spring is doing to the farmers and what's needed to save the planting season when we come back.
Hello, I'm Jimmy Cephalo of the Miami Dolphins. I grew up in Pittston and I love this area of Pennsylvania, but I don't like what's happening to some of our youngsters in this area and throughout the country: drugs and alcohol. Drugs and alcohol make you think that you're stronger, faster, and smarter, but they actually make you slower, less coherent, and weaker. Stay away from them. Do yourself a favor. They're only trouble.
When an emergency arises, it's always reassuring to know medical help is nearby. Now, the people who live on the west side of the Susquehanna River from Plymouth to West Wyoming will have a new mobile intensive care unit handy. Newswatch 16's Mark Davis says Medic 302 was made possible by the hard work of volunteers.
To you and I, this looks like just another ambulance, but for residents of the west side, this truck and the people in it could save your life. What was the dream of a few 3.5 years ago is now reality for many. For people like Henry Navrosky and Paul Kletcha, it's something they believe in.
The people really didn't expect it to work, and the understanding of the system, the idea that a whole new field was opening up, it was a very large hurdle.
Training, we've had dedicated people train themselves, and now we're basically waiting for the funds to make sure that it can be run on a yearly basis. It's going to run about $15,000 per year just to keep the thing in service.
The $40,000 all-volunteer unit hits the road next month. It acts like a mobile intensive care unit, carrying all the necessary life support equipment like this heart machine I'm hooked up to. But the difference here is the paramedics take you to the hospital in your local ambulance. It's much cheaper to buy one of these rather than a full-scale MICU, but the results are the same. With this quick response vehicle and the paramedics who are going to man it, what they're doing is they're getting the doctor to the scene without actually being there. Because the doctor, through the equipment and the trained people a little beyond this, he'll know exactly what's going on. And that saves time. And many times, saving that time can save a life. Mark Davis, Newswatch 16 in Kingston.
Although we had a break from all the rain today, the ground is still quite soggy, and that means farmers all across northeastern and central Pennsylvania are having a hard time planting their crops. We have two reports on the plight of area farmers. The first from Newswatch 16's Craig Stevens in Elysburg.
Craig Richards is like a lot of farmers in our area these days. He's pretty much bored. He cannot plow his fields, he can't plant his corn, all because the ground is too wet. It's rained 14 out of the last 20 days, and his farm in Northumberland County is just too wet to plant anything.
Well, it's getting later, and it's going to mean less yield, so it's going to mean less dollars, less income.
Planting is already 2 weeks behind schedule, and these fields won't get planted until probably the first part of June.
It's been a cold, wet spring, and the corn that has been planted is really behind. It hasn't been growing like it should, hasn't been germinating. And if we get a warm summer, it'll help push the corn along. But if it continues to be a cool, wet summer or a cool, wet spring, why, it's going to make the crops that much later yet.
So in the meantime, Craig Richards just passes his time doing other chores, like feeding pigs. He's hoping he'll be able to get out of the barn and onto a planting tractor as soon as possible. Farmers all over the area will probably harvest about 10% less corn than they normally would next fall, all because they're getting started late this year with their planting. But this late planting is also causing another problem, and that problem is affecting dairy farmers, as we hear in this report from Newswatch 16's Kathi Belich.
These dairy cows don't pay much attention to where their next meal is coming from. It's all taken care of for them. But the guy who takes care of them is worried. Paul Manning has been running a dairy farm here in North Abington Township for years. He says all the rain we've been having is an unusual problem, but it's a serious one. The alfalfa in his fields hasn't been growing because it's not getting enough sunlight. For that reason, the feed for his dairy cows is running very low.
Obviously, it costs to grow the hay, at least myself here, probably between $35 and $40 a ton. And if you have to pay $200 to buy it, it's 4 times as expensive.
That's if you can find it in the area. Manning says everyone's having the same problem. And when a dairy farmer has to pay 4 times as much for his feed, and he keeps getting less and less for his milk as the prices continue to slide down, that means serious trouble.
The only problem I've known is people that weren't able to pay for it just because the price was driven up so high.
And what did they do?
I really don't. Some of them have sold out. They just decided that they were losing money as it was, and if they have to borrow more money, it's a situation that's just not good, so they've just quit.
Manning says if only he could have a whole week of the warm sunshine we had today, he could put some feed into these blue silos before they're completely milk dry. Kathi Belich, Newswatch 16, North Abington Township.
And I think an old man that might have some of those answers, meteorologist Tom Clark, is with us.
Any more sunny days coming up to dry up all those fields, Tom?
Well, there are, but not before more rain comes. Did you call me an old man?
No, yeah.
Oh, right.
No.
So I thought, okay, we'll talk about that later.
Okay.
Meet me out back in just a few minutes. I'll have the weather details.
Everything from whitewater to black powder to beavers biking and bows, from copperheads to whitetails to casting, calling, and crows. You'll see stalking fish, fixing poles, rainbow trout, and snowy owls, setting traps, drilling holes, earthworms, and waterfowls. Whether you're a fan of the eagles, browns, bears, or giants, or of Joe and Stan and the Mountain Man, or some Tom Duck, or Harry, watch hiking, frying, riding, tying, skiing, and flying on Pennsylvania Outdoor Life, Saturday at 7.
It may have sounded like an invasion from the air. It wasn't, but the sight of a C-5A Galaxy flying over Wyoming Valley was one to behold. The world's largest aircraft was at the Wilkes-Barre-Scranton International Airport this weekend for the air show, and it left around 11:30 this morning for its base in Dover, Delaware. The jet, which is as large as a football field, is used by the military to transport men and machines to a war zone. The giant left Avoca wagging its massive wings, saying a military goodbye to those of us who are earthbound.
Wow.
Oh, that's big.
Flew right over my house this morning. Right, saying goodbye. Didn't wave its wings at me, though, unfortunately. And those of us who are earthbound are sick and tired of seeing rain and cold weather. It was a great relief today, Tom.
You ought to step outside now.
I bet.
It is magnificent outside. A deep azure blue sky, hardly a cloud to be seen, but there is a change coming for tomorrow, like I said. and I'll show you what's going to be happening after we have a look at how very comfortable it is outside my backyard tonight. The reading is 73 degrees. Look at that humidity, the air at 51% saturated with water vapor now. The wind northwest at 7, the barometer 30.03, falling now. Air quality index today in Wilkes-Barre and Scranton was good. And it looks like it. Visibility's beyond 20 miles today. High temperature is 73 so far today, 53 that low last night. The record high, 92, set back in 1934. And Newswatch 16 photographer Steve Smallwood found a miniature waterfall over in Lackawanna County. A little moss there for added scenery. It's kind of pretty. Now, the Newswatch 16 color satellite picture showing a line of clouds over Pennsylvania. That is a boundary line between some very warm, humid air to the south and some cool, dry air to the north. That front pushed southward across the viewing area last night, dropped 0.6 of an inch in this backyard, putting us up to about 3.3 inches so far this month. Normal is 3.1. I don't have to tell you it's been wet this month. But now this front here will be working its way back north, I think late tonight and tomorrow morning. So that's going to bring the clouds back with it. And then as it moves north of us late tomorrow, we'll get into some muggy air, some very warm air for tomorrow night, and then into early Wednesday. 92 down in Richmond, Virginia today, to give you an idea of how very warm it is south of that front. Look at this, a strong cold front that will get here Wednesday, with some showers, maybe even a few mean thunderstorms before some dry air pushes in once again behind that front. Now here's the forecast for tonight. A beautiful evening, clear skies, but then I think after midnight it will become cloudy. Alice Hollow, Bradford County, 55. West Wyoming, Bloomsburg, Pottsville, and Lock Haven in the upper 50s for lows tonight. Kind of a mild night. For tomorrow, I'm looking for a mostly cloudy start, maybe even a shower through the morning or midday hours, and then I think a little sun will come through in the afternoon and push temperatures up to the readings you see there. Towanda, Scranton, Hobby, Palmerton, Middleburg, Williamsport, getting up close to 80 in some areas. A southerly wind picks up late in the day at 17 miles per hour. And the above normal temperatures and, well, it's reflected in the health watch there. The resistance to aches and pains, high for tomorrow. Sunrise and sunset, it's coming up right there, 5:40. Look at the sunset now, 8:21. Now, a beautiful, cool evening tonight if you're heading out. You won't even need a jacket. 57 the low tonight, cloudy tomorrow for the most part. Again, maybe a shower as that front moves up from the south once again. I think 78 should be the high tomorrow if we get a few peaks of sun late in the day. Showers on Wednesday, maybe a loud, noisy thunderstorm as that front pushes on through. Look at Thursday, beautiful, about 68, and a warm day on Friday, 76 degrees. Have a lot of bumblebees and honeybees swarming around the crabapple tree. That's why I stood back there tonight.
That's a good idea. Speaking of standing, we had a phone call. A viewer said he couldn't see the shoes. Would you hold it up one more time? There we go.
What did my producer say about that?
Beautiful.
We're not going to tell you.
Okay. Thanks, Tom.
Joe Zone is next with all the sports and a look at the highlights of the weekend action.
Plus, part one of Class of the Past, a look at some of the great athletic teams in our area's history.
The telethon is coming June the 2nd and 3rd.
Well,
what was that?
I'm trying to ignore
That's
it,
what
you know?
it is. We're surrendering to sports, right? You get 8 minutes tonight.
Okay.
Oh, you'd love that.
Let's get to it, okay? If you would listen to me, you'd be borrowing money this week to feed the kids, believe me. Islanders in 6, I think, was the prediction, but the boys from New York must have suffered some affliction. Wayne Gretzky and friends were all fired up, and in 5 games themselves won Mr. Stanley's Cup. Swale, I said, too, was the Preakness' best colt, but along came Gate Dancer to send the Derby winner for a jolt. The Phillies out west kept up a torrid pace. They won 9 straight, a record, and got back in the race. For the Yankees, 2 straight shutouts. The hitting for sure was poor. Catching the Tigers is a reality no more. In basketball, the Boston Celtics beat the Bucks, and the Suns against the Lakers are just about out of luck. The Celtics and the Lakers are a game away from the championship showdown of the NBA. Quick look at the weekend. Okay, you take a look now at some of the teams that we've turned out over the past few years. I guess we could agree that our area has done quite well. Go back 20, 30, even 40 years, and you'll see even then northeastern Pennsylvania was turning out some great teams. Tonight we begin a four-part series called Class of the Past, a look back at those teams. And tonight we begin with the Nanticoke team of the early 60s that won 73 games in 3 years at a state championship.
That's something you can see all over the city of Nanticoke, and it's been that way for years. Kids playing basketball at a playground. The idea being, teach them at a young age how to play the game right. By the time they get to high school, they'll know the program. Well, in 1961, that idea paid off with a state championship.
The 61 Nans had all the qualities of a champion: talent, confidence, experience. But it took an exhibition season loss to Sharon High School in the prestigious Johnstown tournament to bring those qualities out in the players.
That night we had a meeting in the hotel room, just the players. And we said, we can win it all this year if we really want to go out and win it. If we have the talent on the team to do it. So next night we played Chester, and we beat them by about 12 points or so. And from that point on, we just knew if we could beat Chester with the caliber of player that they had on their team, that we could beat anybody. And that sort of set our sights for us after that game.
Through the regular season and preliminary playoffs, the picture of a state title never faded in their minds. The team's almost flawless performances a reflection of each individual's drive and talent. Players who practically lived together, knowing each other's limitations and strong points, led by a man who knew them all well and how to make them champions.
When a Nanticoke team took the floor, you could see the self-confidence. And the way I felt to build that self-confidence was through self-discipline.
Now, for the second year in a row, this Nanticoke team was in the Eastern Final against Reading. It would prove to be the greatest test of this building program of players and their character.
With about 2 minutes left to go, the score was about 47-40, their lead. Things looked pretty bleak for us at that time. This was the Eastern Final game, and we hated to see the season end at this point. We called the timeout, and Still was very confident. He just exuded all this confidence in the world, and we just felt that we're not out of any game. We're going to win any game that we were in, and he suggested the press.
All season long, we practiced a full court press, and because of the fact that we didn't have an opportunity to use it throughout the season, we were winning rather handily. That was the first opportunity we had to use the press.
We all went out there and we just felt that this is going to work and it's going to turn around for us, and fortunately it did for us.
Did that make the championship game that much easier after pulling one off like that?
It really did, Tim. It was really sort of an anticlimactic game for us, believe it or not, a state championship game. We just felt after coming back and winning in that Reading game that we just knew that we were going to win the state championship game.
Thousands turned out to greet Nanticoke as the new state basketball champions. The town was on cloud nine. The players and the coach reflecting on how great a time it had been to build toward a title.
I enjoyed it. I just feel proud that I was a part of the team.
I remember such things as practicing in our old gym over the Christmas holidays when it was 27 degrees. I remember the sellout crowds. You know, it's just a whole panorama of a great year.
Tim Karlson, Newswatch 16 Sports.
Class of the Past, Part 2, tomorrow. You know, it's possible Penn State will be cutting back on its athletic program. That's right, they've projected a $2 million deficit over the next 5 years. Football for sure brings in the big bucks, but it cannot alone support the 27 other sports. Could be some cutbacks. That's all of it. Give tonight your best shot. See you 11 o'clock. The Celtics look to wrap it up tonight.
Oh,
Okay.
Nice series, Joe.
That's the beginning. Wait till you see what else is coming.
Can't wait. Thank you. And the first big weekend of the camping season is just about here.
And we'll tell you what you can expect to find in the woods as Newswatch 16 continues.
Would you like to know what Miss Judy, Marie Osmond, and John Schneider all have in common?
We're all part of a very special team that's out to help the kids of northeastern and central Pennsylvania lead healthy and happy lives.
It's the Children's Miracle Network Telethon to benefit the Children's Hospital at Geisinger Medical Center.
It'll be broadcast live right here on WNEP TV, Channel 16. But remember, 100% of the money that is raised in northeastern and central Pennsylvania is going to stay right here.
Join us and make
a miracle happen.
Now that the weather's warming, campers are breaking out their tents and sleeping bags and getting ready to head out for the woods. Newswatch 16's Jacqueline Carr says that if you're one of them and you're heading to the Poconos public parks, well, you'd better get going early to get a spot.
Plan
planning to spend Memorial Day weekend outside, well, if you're thinking about going to a state park to go camping, you better have reservations. But if you don't, you've still got a chance. Ken Foltz runs Tobyhanna State Park. He says there are 70 reserved spots, all booked, and 70 spots for first come, first serve.
In order to be certain of getting a spot, they should arrive Thursday night or early on Friday. But those who do come Thursday night should be aware of the fact that they must camp Thursday night. They cannot leave their trailer or tent here and then go home. For the most part, campers are determined to camp on the holiday weekends, whether the weather is good for them or not. We'll have a few that cancel out, but not very many.
The slim chances of getting a spot here on Memorial Day don't stop people like Russell Sliker of Bethlehem, who loves camping. Do you think you'll get a spot Memorial Day, even though...
I'll be up before Memorial Day.
Yeah.
It'll be full of Memorial Day. Memorial Day, 4th of July. Labor Day. They're always filled here.
Other state parks Newswatch 16 contacted are all filled for their reserved spots, but they do have spots for the quick campers. Lackawanna State Park has 56 spots. Promised Land State Park out in Pike County has 477 first-come, first-serve openings. At Ricketts Glen there are 60 spots, and in Hickory Run there are 286 free spots. Well, right now the campsites here at Tobyhanna State Park are just about empty. On Memorial Day, this place will be packed. So Ken Foltz says no matter where you're going to camp, start out on Thursday night and be prepared in case you're turned away. Jacqueline Carr, Newswatch 16, Tobyhanna State Park.
And with that good news, that's Newswatch 16 for this Monday.
Be sure to join us tonight on The Update when we'll tell you about a new telephone service that will allow you to decide which calls you want to receive.
World News Tonight is next with the latest on Central America and the fighting in the Persian Gulf. For the team, thank you for being with us.
Enjoy your evening.